Hello and welcome to the SACCO Insight podcast, where we amplifying people's voices. My name is George Ombado, the Executive Director of ACCOSCA. Thank you. Welcome to another episode of SACCO Insight. For this particular SACCO Insight, our focus is to look at the SACCO's potential. Where are we missing? Africa is a continent of 1.3 billion people. The world needs the SACCO sector. So with me today, I'm having the CEO of the National League in Botswana, Madam Kefilwe. I'm happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Kefilwe is very passionate about SACCOs, and she's also a DE. Yeah. What can you say about DE?
Oh, well, DE for me was a game changer. That's when I got to understand the why behind, and that's where now I grew more passion for being aligned with the sector, because I got to see the whole purpose and the whole reason why we have SACCOs.
So you discovered your purpose.
I discovered my purpose during my DE.
So you did DE Africa and DE...
And DE USA.
Thank you. Nice to having you here. We also have Dr. Brandi, who I've also known for a couple of years. She's also a DE. She's passionate about seeing that the gender disparity gap is reduced. And these are the places where I'm talking about, let us find the potential that is needed for the sector. Brandi, welcome to SACCO Insight.
Thanks for having me.
When did you do a DE?
I went through DE in 2003, so over 20 years ago now, and it was a game changer for me too. And I'm actually really thankful that I did at the beginning of my career, because then it allowed me to blossom within credit unions. And so definitely encourage all young people and SACCOs to go through the program.
Thank you. So our topic today, we are meant to focus on to see how do we tap into these young people. At times we ask ourselves, what is the young group? In Africa, at times people say, oh, young is 35. In some places, 45. Actually, African Union, the young age adult is 35, 40. But the paradox is, the median age of most of African countries is 18, 19. What is your thought about our representation in terms of the young people in SACCOs or credit union, both in Africa and in US? I'll start with you, Kefilwe.
Okay. Well, it's quite amazing to realize that Africa is a young continent, but when you look at our SACCO membership as well as leadership, you'd find that we don't have quite a good representation or a reflection of our continent. We have most who are more than 40. If you look at most countries' statistics, you would have few less than 35 years, few less than 40 even. So it means that we've not really been deliberate and inclusive of most of our population as SACCOs in the continent.
What do you think will be the reason why the young people might be finding SACCOs industry not attractive? Because SACCO is a financial institution.
At the moment, youth don't find them very relevant or maybe attractive, if you've put it, because of the way we offer our services, and also because we've not really been deliberate about creating that platform of belonging for the young people. Like I said, most of our membership are the older or those who are above 40. So even when they're coming up with the product, the financial services that they're offering, they're not really inclusive or giving an ear to what actually the young people want. What is it that will actually attract them? And the unfortunate thing is, in most of our countries, the youth are actually the ones that are normally marginalized and unbanked. Even banks don't actually serve them. So they're left there, nobody to provide financial services to them, and we're actually looking to the circles to be the ones that actually close that gap. And unfortunately, they are also amongst the people who are highly affected by unemployment in our countries. But yes, circles, we've not positioned ourselves to be attractive to them, to be relevant to them, to see how best we help them address the challenges that they're facing as the majority of our population in the continent.
Oh, thank you. That's quite insightful. I'll put that on the parking lot for us to at some point think through what is the linkage between financial services and unemployment, and what is our role as a circle industry in that space. Dr. Brandi, Africa being a young continent, do you face similar things in United States? And I know, for instance, you've been very key in supporting the young programs, professional programs globally, not just within America. So maybe you want to speak from that context.
I think that it's an interesting balance that you guys have here about this idea of being young, and I think that's somewhat generational, somewhat cultural across globes, across continent, that people feel younger, older, right? So we're saying 40 is young, where you may not have said that 20, 30 years ago, right? So there's that kind of piece that's there. But in the continent, the median age being where it's at, in reality, we need to be capturing young people by the age of 18 to be ensuring the future of our movement, both internally and externally with our membership, right? So it's not only about the relevance of, and you said it perfectly, about how contemporary and relevant our products are, but also internally, is this a cool place to work? Is this where I want to be? Is this where I see my career? Is this how I can support my family? Is this how I can create an independent life, moving forward? I think in all reality, most people get their first account, but their parents took them to the financial institution to get their first account. So I think that relationship transference is key, especially as wealth transfers from older generations to younger generations.
I like the way you've explained the engagements that you're having. Is there any particular intervention that you've seen that the credit union, the cooperative movement at large in your space have done to attract the young people that has been impactful? Because my understanding is when you have young people working for you, like myself, I have very young people that are in my space, those young people will speak good about your space. So you look at it in both either employment or membership. How do we do that?
I think the institutions in the United States that are most successful externally through membership are ones that engage at a young age. So with school-age children in programs. I know Boulder Dam Crane that is in Nevada, near where I live in Las Vegas. They have programs starting in elementary school to save, and then different programs for junior high school. So by the time that they're actually utilizing financial services, they have a strong relationship with the institution. So that becomes a member for life. I think others that I see are very successful are ones that have strong digital services. So as people move off to their lives, then they have that digital connection. That's one thing we were talking about in the sessions and conversations we were having here, is that we're the last generation of human beings that remember life before the cell phone. Right? I mean, we were talking about this. We're the last ones ever. So our kids literally do not remember ever, were not born when there was a time before they could ask Siri or before they did something on their phone. And so we as institutions can't not continue to base our decision making on the fundamental roots of the past. We have to free ourselves of that and look forward to the future as far as that digital connection.
Okay. I like the example that you've given in regard to the focus in service. Even when you're dealing with young people, your focus is, are you able to provide service to them? Kefilwe, looking at employees, I could say that probably today you are the youngest CEO of a league in the continent of Africa, and being female. Now, which is great. I mean, it's a challenge. It's difficult, but again, it must be a very interesting role that you are in. What advice could you give as a young person to other young people who are aspiring to do what you're doing, particularly in the credit union space, in the SACCO space?
It is quite challenging, and it's also fun because it's an experience that I'm going through as well. But for the young people, the young professionals, specifically in the continent who are working in the credit unions, I'll say opportunities sometimes are availed. But when an opportunity is availed, it depends on the individual, how ready they are, how they've readied themselves to embrace it. And like Brandi was saying, unfortunately, as the young people currently, we find ourselves with that pressure where you're expected to find your way out to the deep end. There isn't much opportunities or access to mentorship for many people in the continent. For me, I would say it's a difficult journey, but it's quite an interesting one because I've been there. Few who are fortunate to have mentorship from George. So even though you're not a female, but you've been in my shoes as a young CEO at one point. So that's the frameworks or the environment. I would say we need to be deliberate also about creating, and that's one thing I'm being deliberate as well myself, using my experience to say at least there is somebody who's there for me to provide that mentorship. So the same I should extend to the young professionals in the continent.
Thank you. Our SACCO Insight this episode is focusing on untapped potential. Our speakers today are both young and are female, areas that people that are often marginalized within our space. Dr. Brandi, you've had growth. If I look at your growth for the last 10 years to date, you must have faced enormous challenges as you are growing in your career. What are some of the huge learning lessons that you may want to share as a young person? Because I know it is those lessons that will make others believe this is an attractive industry to empower them.
I encourage young people to do the work, right? But I also want to embrace and love others and encourage people to champion each other as well. Because one of the challenges that I face is, yes, I went through DE 20 years ago, and it took 15 years for people to realize I've been here all along. Like literally about 5 years ago, people were like, "Wow, you've been around." Yeah, I've been here all along, right? And that's what it takes. Sometimes you have to put in the work, and so sometimes it'll drive me crazy when people don't. They aren't in the trenches. They aren't willing to do what it needs to get done as a human. So that's the challenge piece of it. The other side of it is, there's so many more opportunities today than there were 20 years ago when I was coming up. There's youth empowerment here in our conferences and within ACCOSCA and all of this, our credit unions. The fact that we're even talking about this is bigger than it was 20 years ago. So there's opportunities. People need to take advantage of that and talk to their bosses and talk to their leaders and want it, right? So we were having conversations in some of our women leadership sessions about challenging the norms also. Don't be the first, if you're a woman in the boardroom, don't be the first person to get up for tea, right? Challenge the norms, challenge the traditions, especially if you're the CEO or the board chair, challenge some of these things that are put in place, because that change won't happen if we don't challenge some of that.
So you've seen there's a lot of opportunities, but again, with opportunity comes pressure. The last couple of years since COVID, we've seen the trend today that there's a high correlation between mental health and financial wellness. Yes. Unfortunately, we are also seeing a lot of young people getting into depression. We are seeing even those who've graduated doctors. Just recently, I had a young doctor that committed suicide just because of pressure on their finances. What is it that we can do to the young people that are actually employed so that they don't succumb to the pressure that requires them to consume.
That is one area as Africa that we need to do quite a lot in. Make sure that we start building that relationship with our children as early as possible to teach them how to relate with money, such that by the time they start get employed, now they know how to interact with money. And of course, nobody was born knowing how to interact with money. So it is through financial coaching that SACCOs, we can see now how we best position ourselves to be there for our members, take them through the journey of financial wellness, be there not only to deliver services, but even see the impact that our services that we are providing is making in their lives and help them through the journey. Because the case that you're sharing of a doctor, that doctor, if it's a SACCO member, the question will be, where was the SACCO when that person was going through that mental illness because of financial issues? We're not saying just disburse financial services, but care more as well. These are services that as SACCOs we can provide freely to our members to ensure that at the end we have quality members, even so that the economic and social development we are saying we are bringing, it truly is that.
As a young person and a certified financial coach in Botswana, having gone through the program in ACCOSCA, have you experienced challenges when you're trying to coach people on their finances because you're young?
Most of the time, people who actually need financial coaching are the older. Yeah, because I'll say the older, just the same equally as the young people. The older because we're talking about people who are nearing retirement. And most of them have not actively or intentionally or deliberately prepared for retirement. So it comes as a shock for them, and most fall into those mental illnesses and all that. So when you try to create this conversation with them, in my case as a young person, they're like, oh, what do you even know about this? So it needs a whole mindset change, but we're getting there. Because in Botswana, I've then used other platforms to just sensitize the public about the need for people to actually embrace financial coaching. We call it coaching instead of counseling, because sometimes when you say counseling, already somebody's been defensive to say, no, I'm okay, I don't need counseling. So we're saying coaching, and I'll say slowly, people are starting to embrace the need to actually approach financial coaches and put aside the fact that it's a female or it's a young person, and know that an expert is an expert that's just there to just guide me through, but most of the work is being done by me, the adults.
So you end up advising the young people or even the older on how they plan, borrow, spend, and save, just to the 4 indicators of financial wellness. And I know it's a paradox that in our space, when you're doing financial coaching, often I see it is the older people that feel depressed. They wish they'd gone through that financial coaching at a younger age. Do you experience the same thing in US?
Cultural change requires modeled behavior. So starting with the older generation is smart, because cultural change requires somebody to look up to that's making good decisions, right? You can teach people until we're blue in the face, but if they don't inherently feel like I shouldn't buy those fancy pair of shoes, then we're not going to stop people from doing that, right? So it's about balance. It's a balance of both of those, modeled behavior and education. So I think, yes, of course we see it in the US, and yes, people are struggling, and we find more and more people are, almost 75% are not financially healthy in the US right now, and just not being able to pay baseline bills and get through, the day to day. So it's a tough place, in different ways, in different areas across the globe. But it is about understanding. I think credit unions, SACCOs, are in a unique place to really know the members and to have those relationships. And that's going to be even more crucial as those relationships become more digital.
In that space, we also have the issue which you raised, both of you have actually raised, that making the young people be more productive. In America, I think unemployment is a single digit. In most of our African countries, it's double digit. In fact, in some of our countries, it's 40% unemployment. Kefilwe, what are some of the things we are doing to see that young people don't just focus on formal employment?
Yeah. Well, through the association, because for us, we don't directly serve the members, rather we are influencing the SACCOs through our trainings to start being more inclusive and consider the sector which are normally even excluded, because most of our SACCOs in Africa, they're even employer-based, institution-based. So meaning these youth are normally not even one of their members. So we're starting to just influence that decision making through trainings to start having products and services that now can cater for these young people, train them with other skills that can maybe position them to embrace other opportunities like entrepreneurship skills, other opportunities that they can use to ensure that they close this gap of unemployment, and also just community service.
How do we contribute in amplifying the story around the impact of cooperatives during the UN International Year of Cooperative? The platforms that are there, how can we see that young people get the message? The best place to invest, the best place to empower you, the best place to make you more productive is the financial cooperatives.
It is time to come together. The cooperative principles are the exact way for us to be doing that. Financial inclusion, cooperative, that coming together as cooperatives is just the right move. I think that the way that we can get those messages out there as credit unions in the United States is ensuring that we have our finger on the pulse. And it's easy to say, but making sure that we know what's relevant, what's contemporary, what the needs of the human beings actually are.
Yeah, well, for Africa, that's an opportunity for us to actually leave the SACCO difference, just like in the US, where we need really to have our message out there. Not only be saying SACCOs are for everyone, let it be everyone. Let our membership now be reflective of everyone in our continent. When we started this conversation, we said we have a median age of 18 and 19, but we have the older as our members. Understanding the members' needs means embracing the diversity of our membership, hearing what the older ones, hearing what the differently abled ones, what the young people want. That is how we'll be able to leave our SACCO difference and ensure that truly we celebrate the cooperative year in a remarkable way.
Excellent, excellent. SACCO Insight is happy to have you. I mean, I've known both of you as leaders that have been, when you're engaging, you're not engaging because you're young, you're not engaging because you are female, you're engaging because you are able to bring something on the table, and you do it with certain respect, certain decorum, even when the conversations are difficult. I've seen both of you in the individual capacity engage in very difficult conversations and still gaining respect for those who are older than you and even those who are men. So I applaud the work that you're doing, and I hope that with this kind of engagement we'll continue seeing that we get more young people on board. Just for parting shot, what advice should you give to the listeners? Because SACCO Insight will be heard across the continent and even off the continent, but you want this word to spread that SACCO is a place to be.
If someone out there is listening and you're hearing this right now, share it with at least one or two other leaders. That is the way that we get these insight out to other SACCOs. That is the way that we have this next generation. So I encourage everybody that's out there listening, watching, and reading, understanding to share with at least one other person, one other institution, so we can continue this path forward and encourage youth to be part of the movement.
Remember that at one point you were a young person as well. Yeah. So the best way to actually create that platform from the young people is to empathize. What is that one thing as a young person that you wished was done for you? Even now, what is that opportunity you wish was presented for you in terms of financial services? Now this is an opportunity to do that to the young people who are currently young.
Thank you, thank you. We are happy to have you. And that was our episode on seeing that the young people's voices are heard across the continent and across the globe. Thank you.